Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Benny Watson, and I'm your moderator for this morning's session. We are pleased to have this session coordinated by the Institute of Cultural Policy and Innovation in collaboration, very healthy synergy here, with Reeds International. Our keynote speakers today are quite impressive and even more experienced. So for this morning's first session, we will have the Managing Director of the Institute of Cultural Policy and Innovation, Dr. Dennis Howard, who is a certified real growth advisor, and he's on a mission to make businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs far happier, far more successful. And so from time to time, you will find that the Institute does these workshops as a way of giving back primarily to Jamaica and the rest of the region. For several startups, such as the Caribbean Front Desk, Precious Beginnings and Creative Enterprises, Kiara Cosmetics, and works with several leading figures in the entertainment industry, including Denver and Morgan, Dancehall Hostel. What his profile won't speak to is, of course, his phenomenal expertise in the area he'll be presenting on this morning, intellectual property. Dennis's career spans many genres, I like to say. Currently, he's a lecturer in the Institute of Cultural Studies at the University of the West Indies. But most significant and pertinent to this as a board member at JIPO, an involvement that spans several administrations. He's actually one of our leading experts in Jamaica on intellectual property related issues. Our second presenter this morning, and I must make an apology, our second presenter will be the very able Steve Benson, who is CEO of Badger Maps Inc. And Badger Apps is one of the apps for route planning and scheduling to help outside sales reps save up to 10 hours per week. We do have to make an apology for the presenter whom you did expect, but as you know, we are going through very perilous times, and he had, unfortunately, a family emergency to post haste. So I will turn this morning session over to Dr. Dennis Howard. Dr. Howard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. I want to thank you for that introduction. And I just want to say that my colleague, Everall, our prayers are with him at this point, and hopefully he'll be back for another webinar when he'll get to share his great experience. Now, I know a lot of you are here for the sales presentation, but it is also important for us to understand the issue of trademarks as it relates to businesses, because a lot of companies are not aware of the importance of intellectual property. And so I would love to just introduce you to what it is that we speak about when we talk about intellectual property. But let us move and look at basically what's the definition for property. Property is creation of wealth by an individual which can be used and enjoyed to the exclusion of others. So property is a term describing anything that a person or a business has a legal title over, affording the owner certain enforceable rights over that item. So we know a car, land, a house, all of these things are considered property. So we want to move now to intellectual property. I'm trying to turn on my camera so that you can see me, but it's not giving me. All right, I'll work on it. Okay, yeah. So intellectual property is property that arises from the human intellect. It is a product of your mind. Any improvement or invention is a result of an intellectual exercise of a person. And so writing a poem, coming up with a design, coming up with a unique phrase, that sort of thing, would constitute an intellectual property. So it is something, although it is at first intangible because it comes from an idea, from the mind, but it becomes a property that has value, and it has economic value and other values, as we have seen. And so we talk about intellectual property rights because there are different types of rights for different types of intellectual creation. So intellectual property rights are legal rights that provide creators protection for the original work, invention, or the appearance of products, artistic work, scientific development, and so on. So it spans a wide area. And you'll see that some of the things that we take for granted as business owners and small business owners and even major companies, the things that we take for granted are not to be taken for granted. And that because we have this concept of labor being manual for so long, from the Industrial Revolution going down to post-Fordist kind of arrangements in terms of labor and work and exchange. We don't, well, a lot of us certainly don't believe that it is important that the things that comes out of our mind and the ideas that we create are important and are intellectual properties. So basically we're looking at all of the different intellectual properties that are around. And copyright, trademarks, patent, secret, trade secret, and geographical indications. I will not go into the others because we will want to just look at trademarks today. So as we said, copyright, trademark, patent, trade secret, and geographical indications. And these are some of the different types of intellectual property. Because sometimes because there's not a clear understanding of what is copyrightable and what is trademarkable, we sometimes use the terms incorrect when describing a particular intellectual creation. So it's very important to understand all of the different kinds of intellectual property. So what is a trademark? A trademark is a word, phrase, symbol, or design, or a combination of these that identifies and distinguishes the source of goods of one party from the others. For Jamaica, for the persons who are from Jamaica, and you can also look at the Canadian and the UK and the American Trade Act. The Trade Act of 1999 in Jamaica, it suggests that any sign that is capable of being graphically represented and capable of distinguishing the goods and services of one undertaking, i.e. any person, company, or business entity, from those of another undertaking. So the logos, the different signs, the different photos, that sort of thing, these are what the act is referring to. And generally, all over the world, the act is similarly framed. All right, so according to the website, Jamaica Intellectual Property, these are the rights in trademark. The exclusive right to use the mark to identify his or her goods and or services or to authorize another to use it in return for payment. Next, to guarantee the quality of goods and standards of service for which the mark is used. So in Jamaica, we have the Grace logo and the Grace trademark. And once you see that or hear that or see that sign, you associate a particular quality. We know the logo for Nike, we know the logo for Louis Vuitton, and automatically you kind of understand what kind of standard and quality you're looking at. Next thing, designed to appeal to the consumer, to create interest, and to inspire a feeling of confidence in the goods or service to which it relates. Again, goodwill. You see a particular sign, you know it has a reputation. Apple has a reputation. Microsoft has a reputation. Air Jamaica back in the day had a reputation. American Airline, well, I shouldn't talk about the airline so much, but you understand where I'm going. All right, so the next thing is to restrict the effort of unfair competitors, such as counterfeiters, from using similar distinctive sign to market or promote goods or service of inferior quality or different goods or services. Now, we know the issue of counterfeiting and piracy of particular goods and services. We understand that sometimes people use the logos of particular companies that are high-end brand or brands that are high in reputation and put an inferior product on that. And so this is the kind of protection that is needed for your trademark, for your goodwill, for your high quality, and for your outstanding products that you will develop. And the duration for a trademark is for 10 years, but as usual, you can renew. And so in a sense, a trademark is forever and your company can benefit from the trademark within your goods or services for generations. So we're talking about, we did a kind of definition of trademark earlier and the types of trademarks: letters, numerals, words, pictures, that sort of thing. We all have, and combinations of all of this. So names, such as a company name or product name, domain name, if they label a product or a service, images, symbols, logos. And you'll see two examples of a trademark. The first one is Chubby Checker. Chubby Checker is a African-American artist from back in the 50s and 60s who was known for the twist. And so he trademarked his name, Chubby Checker, and that's a trademark. And he also had another trademark for Chubby Checker's New York twist. So you'll be surprised as we go along to understand some of the things that can be trademarked. Moving along, slogans or phrases, product design, and product packaging, known as trade dress. So if you look at that Cadbury packaging, that can be trademarked. The phrase, just do it, the Nike, you have the logo itself, which is a trademark, plus the slogan, just do it, is also trademarked. And then there are some interesting types of trademark. Color trademark, as you look at the Burger King logo, there is two different trademark, the color version and the black and white version. Then there's the interesting thing of sound marks. Now, listen to this. So we have the MGM trademark, which is the image of the lion, and the other designs. But there's also in some jurisdiction a sound mark for that lion, because MGM, when they applied for trademark, they included the audio of the lion's roar, and so they have a sound mark on the trademark to protect that particular sound. So it cannot be used arbitrarily without incurring a cost. And there's holograms and the shape of goods. So Chubby in Trinidad and Tobago has a trademark on the shape of that particular soft drink bottle. And there is also a shape mark plus the name trademark for the Coca-Cola logo and for the Coca-Cola bottle shape. So in one product, you can have different types of trademark. So these are some of the famous trademarks from all over the world. Apple, VP Records, a Jamaican outfit in New York, COK, Canada Dry from Canada, Rogers from Canada, Grace from Jamaica, Google, the United States, Nike, United States, and one of the most famous logos from out of Jamaica, the red stripe logo, and of course, Digicel, one of our telecommunications company. So these are important. When you see the Grace logo, when you see the red stripe, it is associated with a particular quality. It's associated with a particular reputation. COK is one of the oldest credit union in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, and it has a reputation, it has a value, and that symbol represents more than just being a credit union. Digicel, Apple, the type of quality, Google, the kind of quality and technology and advancement, and an old favorite, Canada Dry. A lot of people in Jamaica my age would know about Canada Dry. All right. Then we're talking about the slogans. And there are some very famous slogans that are trademark, meaning if you use them, you have to pay for them. So the Terminator movie franchise, because Arnold Schwarzenegger had a famous line in it, "Hasta la vista, baby," it is trademarked by the producers. Bananas, this is Rachel Zoe, high fashion New Yorker. She trademarked bananas, meaning that you're crazy. Vibes Cartel in Jamaica, the shrewd businessman he is, trademark Up to the Time, which was one of his saying and was the name of one of his albums. McEnroe, the contentious tennis player who always had problems on the court with umpires, and his famous slogan was, "You cannot be serious." Well, he's making money off it now because John McEnroe trademarked the slogan. Paris Hilton, "That's hot." Bam, Emeril Lagasse, chef, always saying bam. And so some of these things are just on the spur of the moment, but they become so iconic and so popular that the persons who are associated with it, maybe not the first person to say it, but the person who had the smarts to get them trademark and now can earn money from these famous slogans. And the most famous of all,
ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
The great Michael Buffer, the boxing ringmaster, who came up with this famous slogan, "Let's get ready to rumble," trademarked by Mr. Buffer, and he makes a tidy sum from the use of this famous trademarked slogan. So why is this trademark important to businesses? We're talking about brand protection. It averts legal issues in the future. So anybody uses your slogan, your symbol, your logo improperly, you can take them to court, and we will look at that later down. Then there's the most important part for marketers, the brand recognition, differentiating from your competitor. The university logo, Tough Gong International, Amazon, Motown, Flow. You know when you see them, you see quality, you associate it immediately with telecommunications. You associate it readily with music for Motown and Tough Gong, and of course, the online giant Amazon. So there is equity in having a recognizable trademark. It's an incentive for employers to join. People announce on LinkedIn their employment at companies like this. You see it all the time, you know. Young interns or MBAs coming out of you know, business school, lands a job at Motown and it will be announced, lands a job at UA, lands a job at Flow, lands a job at Amazon. And so people will want to come to your company because of the reputation and because of the protection and the promotion of your brand via your logo, which is protected by a trademark. And then you have a lifetime of protection. So there's economic benefit from the use of your trademark, either from people legally using it or from the illegal use of it, and then you take them to court. And in terms of nowadays, when small companies, startups are at a point where they want to scale and at some point move on, especially if you're a serial entrepreneur, if you want to liquidate the company. And I always advise startups to have a plan to when you scale, there is a plan in place to pass on the company or get bought out by a bigger company. And part of that asset base will be your trademark. And it might be different trademarks. It's not necessarily only the logo. It might be a shape. It might be a slogan. So in fact, a startup or any company for that matter can have a series of trademark within the company. And it doesn't matter what kind of services or product that you are doing for in your company. So how to get a trademark? And we're going to use the JIPO example, but it's similar situation everywhere in the world. An application to register a trademark must be filed at the Trademark and Design Directorate of the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, or in the case of the United States, the equivalent to the Trademark and Design Directorate, or in Trinidad, a similar situation. The application must contain a clear reproduction of the mark being filed for registration, including colors, any colors, form, or three-dimensional features. And then the application must also contain acceptable and specific description of the goods and or services to which the mark will apply. The mark must fulfill all the requirements under the Trademark Act in order for it to be protected as a trademark, including as a collective or certification mark. And finally, it is recommended that an applicant conduct a preliminary search and examination at JIPO to ensure that the mark for the goods and services being applied for is not identical or similar to an earlier registered mark or for identical or similar goods and services, which would prevent the applicant mark from being registered. So in other words, once you submit your mark, you also have to do a search to see if anybody else have that particular mark or slogan or sign or what have you. So there is some legwork to be done. And that is why sometimes, especially if you are thinking global and you want to trademark your you want to get a trademark in Jamaica, the United States, and you want to extend it globally, it is very expensive currently because we in Jamaica have not signed the convention, which is called the Madrid Protocol, which would allow automatic, once you register your trademark here, it would be automatically covered all over the world, similar to copyright. So this part of it in terms of legal fees and stuff can be problematic, but I suggest to small companies to register your company and register your trademark at JIPO first. And as you scale, you can move outside of the country and the region. All right. Trademarking allows for different types of classifications. So you can register your trademark under different classes. So multiple class trademark applications are available. And you can check the JIPA website, and I'll be sending out some information to that effect. And so you can look at the details as to how that will work out. Now, the important thing is that one of the importance of having the trademark or trademarks is that you can go to the courts to deal with what we call infringements. So trademark infringement. An owner of a valid trademark may sue an individual or company for trademark infringement when that individual or company uses an identical or confusingly similar mark in connection with the goods or service. And so the example we have here is the Adidas or the Adidas logo. And this is a copy of the Adidas logo, and that's called Adidolls. So that's a kind of infringement. And so one would have to take the owners of Adidas to court. Then there's the matter of what we call trademark dilution. An owner of a trademark with a reputation may sue an individual or company for trademark dilution when that company or individual uses its trademark in connection with goods or services in a way that is likely to dilute it. There's in some jurisdictions, there's a thing that they call famous trademarks, separate from the regular trademark category. And so some trademark, KFC would be one, McDonald's, Blue Mountain Coffee, Red Stripe would be considered a famous trademark. And so the court allows for a case to be brought about trademark dilution, which will cause confusion. So we see the two examples, Starbucks coffee and that Satar Bush, which is a Indian cafe. And so it is seriously similar to the Starbucks logo. And McCurry is somewhat similar to the McDonald's logo. And so it is possible to go to court and get this resolved on the basis of what we call trademark dilution. Now, there was a famous case in Jamaica where McDonald's Corporation and McDonald's Corporations Limited, on entering the Jamaican market, discovered that Vincent Chang was the owner of the McDonald's restaurant. And in the logo for the McDonald's restaurant, it had a similar golden arch, almost similar. However, the courts, the Supreme Court here, on the basis of our copyright law, suggested that McDonald's, and this was in the 90s, McDonald's was a newcomer in the marketplace, and the restaurant owned by Vincent Chang was established from in the 1970s. And on that basis, the McDonald's, the corporate giant, lost the case, and the courts ruled in favor of Vincent Chang, because although there was some similarity in the logo and the name, because the law allows for a company having a name and it is established and over time has been established. When a new company comes in who have a similar kind of situation, the courts will favor the one who has had more time in the marketplace. And so this is one of I think it's the precedence setting case in Jamaica. Then we have another famous one, which was the Apple Inc. versus Apple Corps. So Apple Corps is the company for the famous group, the Beatles. It was their record label and their company when they were really at the top of their game. Now, when Apple Inc., which is the computer giant, formed their company, long after Apple Corps, they took them to court. But the case was settled in the sense that Apple Corps allowed Apple Inc. to use the logo and the name, although there's some similarity. And Apple Inc. paid up some money to Apple Corps, and Apple Inc. promised not to enter the music industry. Well, that didn't last too long, because Apple entered the music industry via iTunes, and Apple Corps took them to court again. And this time, Apple Inc. and Steve Jobs had to buy the name from Apple Corps and settled with some cash also. So I guess it's settled. And there are lots of other cases about trademark infringement, and some are pending as we speak. And there might be some cases as we speak in Jamaica. But this basically tells us that trademarks and other intellectual property are important for businesses, and one should not take them lightly. And at the beginning of your company, a proper, well-designed logo should be a priority, because it's about your brand, it's about brand recognition. It is going to be one of your biggest marketing tool. It's going to ultimately be a recruiting tool for you. It is also part of your asset base. It is also the laws of the land. If you register your trademark properly, you have redress for any infringement and any exploitation of your images and your logos and your trademark, whether it be a slogan, a word, a phrase, a sign, sound, colors, all of that. You will have the option to take persons to court. And I have to reiterate that a lot of startups don't take the time to understand that the creation, the innovations, Jamaicans are very creative, and a lot of people just come up with innovative things on a daily basis. And we take it very lightly. And I am imploring anybody, whether you're in a major company, whether you're at a startup, whether you are in a medium-sized business, whether you're a sole proprietor, you have to realize that there's a lot of things that you will create in the running of your company that will become intellectual property. And so it is important to differentiate between the different types of intellectual property that you will have in your company. Certainly some companies will have patents, some companies will have copyright. Every company will have trademark, because once you're a company, you should have a logo, you should have a slogan. And then depending on the goods or services that you are dealing with, you will have various options to trademark stuff: the shape of a particular product, the sound, the colors, the logos, the slogans, all of that. And I advise people it's not particularly expensive to do your trademark. It's almost as similar to if a lawyer registered your company. And if you go to Jaipur, or if you're not in that jurisdiction, if you go to the equivalent organization in your country, they are extremely helpful in assisting entrepreneurs to register their copyright. Thank you. Over now to Ms. Watson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Howard. Very interesting. For sure, I'm sure all participants would have learned quite a bit. The chat feature, the Q&A feature is open. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and post there. Mr. Benson is gearing up for his presentation. And as you are posting the chat, he will take control and he will also introduce himself. I am seeing a raised hand. All right, so you have the option of using the raise hand feature or the chat. I see Mr. Benson's hand is raised. Go ahead, Mr. Benson. And Winston will follow. Go ahead, Mr. Benson.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Excellent. Could you give me the ability to present my screen?
Certainly. Just give us a second.
You got that. Go ahead, Winston, in the meantime.
All right. Let me just share my screen here. Oh, it looks like you've disabled screen sharing. Does that make sense? Do you know how to let me share my screen?
Come in.
I'm here. Can you hear me? You just have to let me share my screen. Right now, it's disabled. Oh, okay. There you go. Thank you.
I think before Steve goes, Winston had a question. Winston, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I just
Winston, you're breaking up a bit. You're breaking up a bit. I don't know if you could type in the chat.
Speak about the I know that Disney had an issue years ago when their um
We're not hearing you.
Yeah, Winston, I'm afraid we can't hear you.
Mickey Mouse.
Winston? Winston, we're not hearing you. You may type the question in the chat, and at the end of Steve's presentation, then it will be certain to respond to it.
Okay. I will. Why don't I jump into presenting then, and then Winston can ask his question a little bit. So, I guess what I'm going to talk about today is how to improve your sales strategy and be successful during a recession. I guess a little bit about me. I'm CEO of Badger Maps. It's an application that helps field salespeople be more successful. And as I guess this is a really important topic that we're covering today, because as many of you know, when the economy experiences a downturn, suddenly your customers and frankly, as well as you and your business may face an uncertain future, and it can be difficult to navigate your way, and frankly, it can seem like a never-ending rabbit hole. So today we're going to talk about how to combat those challenges, and I'm going to be showing you some actionable steps that you can take to ensure that not only your business survives during a poor economy and a challenging time, but also that you're personally able to step up and make the best of those challenges and be successful. So, I guess why I talk about this, a little bit about my background. I went to Stanford for my MBA, and then I worked in sales at Google, which is a lot of fun to be at. And then I ended up, I was Google's top enterprise sales exec in 2009. And then I was working a lot with their mobile and their mapping products. And I kind of saw these problems that salespeople have with routing and with mapping their territories that could be solved with a new type of software. And that's why I founded this company, Badger Maps, about 10 years ago. I also host a company called a podcast called Outside Sales Talk, where I bring top sales experts onto the show, and we talk about how to be a better salesperson, specifically for outside sales, since that's what Badger Maps helps. That's the type of people. So moving through the agenda here, we're going to talk about, these are the things we're going to cover. And are we going till 9 o'clock on this? Is that the time that we're stopping to speak?
What? You can go as long as you want.
Okay. Cool. So we should be able to do this by, I'll keep going then. So anyway, these are the things we're going to talk about. So new challenges, how to be more productive in sales, how to build your relationships, how to adjust your messaging, your communication, how to rethink about who your ideal customer is, and altering your sales strategy to combat things in a down economy. And also we're going to talk about some common mistakes people make, and then bring in a couple of bonus hacks at the end. So here's just about me. We don't have to go through it, though. It's we can skip that part. So here's a quote that I think is very opportune for our time. In the middle of every difficulty lies an opportunity. And this is exactly what we're going to talk about during this webinar, how to go out there and identify and leverage the opportunities that this really challenging situation has presented us with here. So first, let's talk about understanding and overcoming new challenges and understand so I guess first, what's one of the main challenges that people face in a down economy? Why are these a tough time? It's desperate competitors doing desperate things. It's a huge challenge that businesses face right now. So, and can everyone see my screen here just fine? Just to make sure you're following along with the slides.
We are following, Steve. It's quite fine. We're hearing well, and we're seeing your screen as well.
Perfect. That's great to hear. So, I guess desperate competitors doing desperate things to beat you is a huge problem when in a down economy. So a lot of companies are really hurting right now, and they're willing to do things they would not have done before. And these companies that are desperate will do things like give up their margin, lower their costs, give deep discounts, and they're doing all these things to steal your customers away from you, to be more competitive. So maybe they're willing to liquidate their inventory just to make ends meet, right? Maybe they're giving away free consulting. So what can you do to combat these behaviors? So one of the most important things your business needs to succeed is consistency. So you don't want to fall into the trap of doing unsustainable things that you wouldn't do normally, or that wouldn't allow you to be successful, just to combat what your competitors are doing because they're in a difficult time. So if you can't give up your margin forever, for example, if you can't do discounts, then really it's not good to do it right now, and it's more important to focus on selling the value of your product or service. Otherwise, you risk damaging the business, and you also lose the trust of your customers. And you don't want to get caught up in executing strategies that are only going to work in the short term, especially if they damage you for the long term. So you want to be really strategic about the things that you change, especially when it comes to things like discounting and lowering prices. So lowering prices is a key one, and just because of other desperate competitors, you don't want to devalue your products or services, because that keeps you from having a strong value proposition going forward. So you want to stay consistent, and that'll pay off in the long term. And so you want to be patient and not let desperate competitors drag you down a path of destroying your margins in the business. It's easy to lower prices. It's not always easy to raise them back up again, I guess, is the lesson there. So one thing that you're going to encounter as a salesperson or as any business person right now is resistance from customers who aren't willing to spend money. So you may find that they're resistant to signing checks, they're resistant to signing up for deals. Maybe they don't even want to engage in evaluating your product or service. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they can't meet in person right now, depending on what country you're in, right? And when you think about it, if someone really didn't want to meet with you before, now they have a fantastic excuse, right? And everyone's busier and in a tougher position than they were before, right? So another thing to watch out for in this circumstance is aggressive procurement departments, right? So the procurement people are almost like the salesperson's worst enemy, and they can leverage the down economy right now to ask you for discounts, ask for better terms, and generally try to jam down your margins. And remember, a procurement professional is basically a professional negotiator, right? So you have to stop giving them concessions at some point, and you have to recognize when you're in a zero-sum negotiation, instead of a win-win negotiation. You have to draw the line. And you can't blame customers and procurement people for trying to twist your arm for a few more concessions right now, because that's really their job, right? Instead, you just have to be fully prepared for these negotiations. And so let me give you a few pointers on how you can do that. So what do you do when the purse strings are tight here? You want to prepare yourself, or if you're a manager, prepare your team for the tough but yet inevitable negotiations by doubling down your values. So it's more important now than ever to show your prospects how much they stand to lose by not putting your solution in place. And that's really the key to doing well by showing the value in that way, is how you can win your negotiations. That's really the secret to it. So how do you do that? You show your customers, or you show the person, your prospect, the person you want to become your customer, show them with numbers what the problem that you're solving with your product or solution is worth to them. And this is primarily a business-to-business sale, right? So you're assuming they're not making decisions purely with emotion, but you're in the negotiation, you're trying to keep things based in reality, and you want to help to convince them that spending the money on your product or service will be a valuable investment for them. So, remember that a procurement department generally is not in charge of whether a company will make a particular purchase. What their job is, and what they're in charge of, is getting the best price for this purchase. A decision maker has generally already made a decision to make a purchase, and so if you focus your interaction with that decision maker on helping them truly see the value of your product or service, and I mean, breaking it down in terms of dollar value, then that makes the negotiation with the procurement team later much easier because the decision's already made. So remember, another point to remember down here is, remember that you shouldn't be giving anything in a negotiation without getting something back in return. Everything should be a trade. And every negotiation should end with a win-win situation that's of mutual benefit for you and your customer. So, for example, if you agree to give them a 15% discount off your product or service, they should be giving you something in return, like a promise to keep the subscription for a year or something that's important to you. Now, if you're the designer of a sales plan, or if you run a team and you have a product with tightening margins right now, which a lot of people do, meaning that you make less profit than you used to, what you can do is, and this is particularly if you're a sales manager, you can consider altering the sales comp plan to compensate your reps on profit margin instead of on top line revenue. So, meaning a 15% discount is only going to cost your reps 15% of their commission, right? But if the compensation plan is aligned with profit instead of revenue, then, and you have a 30% profit margin, then that 15% discount costs them half their commission. I'm not sure if the numbers are that easy to follow, but if reps are incentivized to fight a bit more to keep that profit margin from eroding, if you align them on that profit margin as opposed to revenue, and that is especially helpful in times like this, because then the company and the sales rep are aligned. So in general, a plan that aligns the sales reps with what's important to the business will always work better. And in this case, you want to incentivize your sales reps to defend the margin in a tough time. And this is just a little tweak to the sales plan to align their compensation plan with the profit line instead of the revenue line. And this is a super common thing to do in industries that already had tight margins. But a lot of times, businesses that in good times had really good margins would align with that revenue line as opposed to the profit line. But now they're facing different times, and if you're facing that change, it's a great time to shift shift the way you've designed your compensation plan for your sales reps. So next, I'll be talking about utilizing sales automation and productivity apps to maximize your efficiency on a day-to-day basis as a sales rep. So using the right tech stack is really important in a down economy because it helps you do more with less and really focus on the important things rather than doing the busy work that could just be automated. So you want to look to use tools to increase your sales productivity. So the first step to increasing your sales productivity is figure out what you need to change, where you need to boost your performance, right? What do you need to improve? So to do this, you want to look at the key metrics and of your business and evaluate your performance and figure out what those areas for improvement are. So the most important metric in sales is always either revenue or profit. And I would recommend that a sales team in a down economy not only focus on revenue and profit because these are lagging metrics. So meaning they are measuring what you've been doing in the past. But I think in a down economy especially, you want to look at the forward-looking metrics of a sales team. And what are these? The forward-looking metrics are things like qualified leads, what you have in your pipeline, what proposals you've sent out. So basically, it's not fair to judge yourself as a salesperson just on what your revenue numbers are right now because the economy is screwed up. But what you can do is also look at how many deals do I have coming down the pipeline? How many proposals do I have out there? Things like that. So it's important to basically set yourself up for success in the future. And the CFO or the leadership team of a company might put a lot of pressure on the sales team not just focus on revenue because cash is really king in a lot of ways right now. But as a member of the sales team, it's also I think your responsibility to keep your eye on the future and keep building pipeline so that you can keep generating revenue and making your number in the future, right? So now, if you're having trouble building pipeline, I think it's really important to keep your eye on lead gen numbers right now. So things like how many qualified meetings have I had? How many meetings do I have scheduled in the next week or the next month? How many qualified leads do I have in? And these are areas where technology can really help out. So I guess this is I use myself as an example, and the company that I run as an example, just because it makes sense to me, and it's a sales productivity tool, right? So to maximize your efficiency in whatever area you identify as the place that you need most, you should look for apps and look for resources that you can take advantage of, and have software help you be more productive. So depending on how you're selling or what industry you're in, there are many valuable apps and tools available today. So this example, Badger Maps, we help field or outside salespeople specifically, and we help them sell 20-25% more on average by giving them a way to visualize their customer data, optimize their routes, optimize their schedule, and gather information from the field by automating communication with the CRM. We also help generate new leads in areas that they're going to be in. So in the end, field salespeople that use Badger save time in their daily planning, they have better relationships, and they discover new opportunities for businesses, and ultimately they close more deals. So this is the kind of efficiency tool and that businesses need to look for during a down economy. And you want to look for these types of tools that will solve the problems that are specific to your business. Meaning, if you have an inside sales team, you'll want a tool that is helpful for inside sales teams. If it's a lead gen problem, then you want to specifically look at what great lead gen tools are out there. So step one is to identify things. Identify what's wrong. So you want to work smart, not hard in the world, right? That's what they always say, and I think that's an important thing to think about. And you want to use software to maximize your resources. So utilizing these types of tools, you're able to focus and you're able to prioritize on things that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And you want to kind of always put yourself in the mindset of a millennial and ask yourself, is there an app for that? Because a lot of times, if something is sucking up your time and is manual, there's going to be an app for that. There's going to be a piece of software that you can run to assist you. So you want to be very careful and do research and find the right tools that you can keep in your belt. I like products like G2 Crowd that help you see a whole bunch of different competing software tools and kind of organize them. That's a good place to like discover new software tools that I use. You know, this tool might be a CRM. It could be a prospecting platform like LinkedIn. It could be an app to help you with sales proposals or your travel expenses. Next, I'm going to talk about building relationships and maintaining relationships online, and that can be something that's new territory for some types of salespeople who historically have been doing their sales outside. So, online prospecting has a lot in common, I guess, with in-person prospecting. And it's really important right now. You have to spend time finding new prospects and building relationships with them. So it's worth working on your social selling skills for starters. Social selling is a great way to connect with prospects and customers in these times. And so it's a good time to invest in your social selling skills. And I guess everyone knows what I'm talking about when I talk about social selling, right? I mean, this is a topic that's big enough for a book, but you know, throughout this entire economic crisis, I've had several experts that know how to leverage social media onto my podcast, and I've learned a bunch from those guys. There's a ton of books about this. If you want to shortcut, my podcast, Outside Sales Talk, has episodes on this where I brought on top experts in it. But so it's worth checking that out. It's just available for free on any podcast platform. But there are some really clever tactics that you can use to generate new leads and deepen your relationships with your existing customers using social media right. I've left a link in this presentation to some of the best ones. Well, I guess you guys can't click on the link. I'm not sure if I'm happy to provide these slides afterwards, but you can just Google Outside Sales Talk Podcast. You can find it. But as you try to build relationships online, it's important to understand what your prospects and customers are expecting of you, right? And this graph shows some of the top traits that business-to-business buyers value in salespeople. So since building and maintaining relationships is more difficult online, and it's important to keep these top traits in mind when you're communicating with your prospects. So you want to develop these key skills, and in that way your sales conversations will be more memorable. You'll connect with your customers and understand their problems better, and you'll end up in a situation where you're more likely to close a deal. It's important to note here that active listening is one of the most important characteristics on this list. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and salespeople forget that, and sometimes that's what keeps them from being truly valued consultants, is they don't listen well enough. So in all your interactions, remote interactions as a salesperson in these times, if that's the only option, it can help if you meet your customers and prospects over a video conference rather than a regular phone call. Your body language can do a ton to show your prospects that you're paying close attention to everything they're saying, and show them that you're genuinely interested in solving their problems. I think another key aspect of online communication is empathy, and everyone's talking about empathy right now, right? And that's pretty obvious. But like, even when you know exactly how to show empathy, building long-lasting relationships is frankly harder than ever right now. And in this new world, you may sense less trust, less customer loyalty, and you may notice sales cycles becoming longer. And we've got to work against that. So how do you do that? The first skill I want to talk about is leveraging your sponsor. So you need someone to be your eyes and your ears in your deals. And when you think about it, you always needed this to be successful, right? especially if you have a complex sales cycle. But now I think you need it more than ever. And your sponsor is rarely the only decision maker, especially given how tight purse strings are right now. So how do you get around? What's the best strategy here? You want to ask your sponsor before you meet with them. Before you have a broader meeting with their team, you want to ask them to think about their team and think about what objections those other teammates or decision makers or influencers may have, so that you can address those objections during the meeting. So basically, you want to get your sponsor, the person who wants your product in the organization, to help you sell. So what else can you do? You can subtly prepare them on a pre-meeting call. You can talk to them one-on-one before you're meeting with a broader group, and you can bring up key questions or make key points to facilitate discussion, right? So basically, help them, ask them to tell you what people, what the people on their team are going to have objections to, what they're going to have problems are, what are the key things they think you should be covering, given what they're thinking about right now. And this is so important right now because it's when you're pitching remotely, you can't read the room, you can't look around, you can't get all the information you could in like a face-to-face situation. And if you're not seeing your audience, you can't read people's body language. You lose that natural chit chat that builds rapport, and it's harder to get the relationships in place with every decision maker that you can get in person. So you need your sponsor to help you with those relationships. You need to leverage them and use their great relationships with these people that they already have in place. And you also need to have them after the meeting follow up with the key decision makers and influencers that are in the deal at their company, and have them gather genuine feedback on your behalf so that you can then work with them to move the deal towards closure. Next, I wanted to talk about adapting your messaging and communication, because in a tough economy especially, it's really good to rethink your messaging and revisit things. So the things that you used to focus on when pitching your product or service might not be the most relevant things that you're pitching, and the most relevant messages for when you're talking to your prospects today. So what's changed? Now, in a down economy, people are just in a different mindset, people are in a different position. And so how do you adapt your messaging and what you're communicating, or the way you're communicating for a down economy? So first thing, you can change your messaging from kind of the classic "will help you do better," which is kind of the messaging that you see all over the place, right? If you look at a lot of people's products or services, they're basically saying "will help you do better," and this messaging is great in a good economy. But in a bad economy, when companies are in trouble, when the people that you're trying to sell to are in trouble, you can change your messaging to "will help you do more with less." So why is this so helpful? So you need to show, once you've kind of shifted the conversation to "will help you do more with less," you need to show your prospects exactly how you'll help them do more with less, and show it in monetary terms. So it could be less money, it could be less manpower, it could be fewer resources, but the messaging should be "will help you do more with less." So I went through this process with my sales team. When times were good, my sales team at Badger Maps, we were giving messaging to our customers like, "We'll help your field sales team sell 20% more." But now, in these times, our messaging has changed, right? And how do we change it? We now say, with Badger Maps, your outside sales team can generate the same revenue, even though your team is 20% smaller. And that's just an example of how you can do this, right? So, and there's a huge difference here. I'm saying basically the same thing, but the second message will resonate with your customers way more in a down economy, because it speaks to their position that they're in right now. So next, I want to evaluate your new ideal customer plan. So why why is it? It's important to rethink about who's my ideal customer right now. So who am I selling to? Because in a lot of cases, the person that needs your product or service the most is different, because maybe the original person's types of business has shut down. Maybe their needs have changed. The world has shifted a little bit, and so it's a good time to reevaluate who my ideal customer is, because if it's a different person, you've got to pivot, right? And many businesses have pivoted on who exactly they're focused on selling to, and in some cases, you know, the way the world is right now is actually opening up new opportunities, right? So it just, as an example, if you were selling local craft beer to bars, if that's what your business was, and things weren't working right now because bars are mostly closed, then maybe you could arrange to get on a condo building's mailing list, and you could take orders for a beer drop-off where everyone could get their beer in the lobby. Maybe you could deepen relationships with grocery stores, right? And it's important that you do these things as soon as possible, because competitors may find these opportunities faster than you, and it's a very dynamic landscape right now. So you really want to rethink the way you're doing things. So next, I'll be talking to you about how can you alter your sales strategies to combat the down economy and still come out on top. So the first thing is simply prospect more and qualify more. A survey that was conducted right before coronavirus started said that 1/3 of all salespeople don't prospect at all. And I think this is a great time to fix this for that third. Another thing to focus on is qualification. So I think this is more important right now than ever. So if there's a reason that a deal can't be done, and there isn't time to waste on sales cycles, that'll never succeed, right? And so you need to make sure that you're qualifying things. And there's just a lot of companies out there that aren't able to spend money. They're not going to be able to. They're just, no matter what, going to need to buy the cheapest products on the market, and those deals. If you're not that, then you got to qualify those deals out right away. And I find with qualification, the secret is that people are generally honest. They don't like to disappoint you, and if you ask the right questions, you'll get honest answers, and people will qualify themselves out, right, out or in. And so how do you do that? You can ask, so the people that I work with generally come in two categories, right? Category one, they're leaning towards moving forward now. Category two, they're more leaning towards being worried about making changes in these times, or they have something that's keeping them from making a change. Which category are you in? And that's a simple question, right? But that'll make the group of people that's leaning towards doing something with you, that'll make them kind of expose themselves. And if they're not going to be able to do something with you, they'll let you know right then. And I think it's worth spending the extra time to ask these questions and qualify things up front before you devote resources, before you write up quotes, before you start sales cycles, write a proposal, because efficient use of your time is really, really important right now, because it is just a harder time to be successful. So you have to be more efficient. I had a slide on this. Look at that. But definitely worth thinking about. Here's this graphic shows you how important prospecting is, and helps you qualify. Helps you think about how to qualify, right? So buyers don't want to talk to sellers and all the time, right? And as statistics show, they want people who are actively reaching out to them and taking initiative and getting moving things down the sales pipeline effectively, right? So this stat jumps out at me right here. 82% of buyers accept meetings with sellers that reach out to them. And 82% is a really big number, right? And it proves that it's worth taking time and taking that initiative to talk to your prospects, because if you don't, someone else will, and they'll end up closing the deal that should have been yours. So I think it's worth being a little more aggressive and reaching out to prospective customers who you have a good solution for, and make sure you're not doing it just last minute, but you're reaching for them consistently over time to keep your pipeline full. You know, buyers want to hear from you when they're actively facing a problem, and you got to be proactive to make sure you're in front of them. And so you got to reach out early and often with people that you know can really use your product. So another key strategy here is to get in front of decision makers as soon as possible. And this is really important right now because there's a lot of reasons that deals get hung up in this economy. And you have to be able to get in front of the right people at the organization you're selling to and understand the problems that they need to solve. And you need to communicate how much value that they'll get from your product or service. So if you're not in front of the right person who's authorized to make decisions, then you probably won't be able to get the budget that you need to get the deal done. You won't be able to move things down the line. And this is always true, of course, right? This is like sales. This is sales blocking and tackling, but I think it's especially true right now that people's strings are tighter. So let's talk about the mistakes that salespeople make in a down economy, and frankly, how to avoid them. So first, you really have to be careful about changing your strategies too much, right? So I've seen people get this wrong as often as I've seen them get it right, I guess. So reps will often make the mistake of just blindly increasing their sales activity, and they lose quality as a result, and they end up focusing on the wrong deals and spinning their wheels. And it's understandable, right? You know, there's when salespeople when you feel behind, fear of being behind and not being successful makes you crank up the volume on your sales activity, right? But you need to make sure that the changes you're making and the activities that you're doing are strategic and are going to get you the results that you want, right? So reducing quality for quantity. This is like one of the most common mistakes that are made, right? And quantity rarely makes up for quality. So again, it's really important to focus on qualifying your leads well. If you lower your qualification standards, then you know, if you aren't doing the things that you know are going to work, you can end up doing a lot more work and having very little to show for it. So you want to focus on what makes something qualified. You want to consider your lead's scope. You want to think about their budget. You want to make sure that the specific value that you're offering for this unique customer and other factors that define a successful customer for your company, you want to make sure that you focus on selling specifically to those types of prospects and not selling to people that your value proposition isn't going to be perfect for. So I guess if I was going to summarize this, the limited activities that you do almost just to keep busy, right? A scattershot approach is not worth the time. It's not worth the effort and the anxiety, frankly, of things not working that you put into it. So here's a few bonus hacks that I like. Since we're nearing the end of the presentation here, a couple little last minute thoughts that might be helpful as you continue on your sales journey here. So first hack is to learn to communicate in the language of return on investment, so ROI for your customers. And I've talked about this, a couple times a little bit in this presentation, but let me explain in a little more detail. So think about questions such as, what do they get in terms of benefits that they can count in dollars when they purchase your product? By showing people in numbers how much your product or services will bring your customer value, it can prove to them that it's worth it to take a chance on you. For example, this formula has brought me success a ton of times in sales. So just kind of fill this concept in when you're talking is kind of your job in a sales presentation. Our product does blank, so that's the feature, right? Which allows you to do blank, and that's the benefit, and that means blank in terms of real business value. And if you utilize this type of messaging when you're communicating with potential customers, it'll show them exactly what they need to do, what they need to know about your product that can benefit them. And you can reuse this same template and tailor it to each customer. So I think a lot of salespeople forget to kind of, a whole half-hour presentation can basically cover the conversation, can basically cover this concept. And a lot of people don't spend enough time on the real business value. They keep talking about our product does blank. They keep talking about the feature. They don't match that. I guess bad salespeople just talk about features. Good salespeople will match it to the benefit that the customer is going to get. And the best salespeople can then turn those benefits into business value. So second hack here, you want to take advantage of the positive things that are going on right now in the world. And yes, there's some good news. Elements of the global economy are opening up, and there is good news in the economy, right? One key thing is people are picking up the phone in a way I've never seen in my career. And I think, decisions that may have been impossible to reach, a year and a half ago, now pick up their phones when you call them. I think that's because a lot of people are working from home. I think, a lot of people are bored or lonely, and a lot of people, their businesses are in a tough situation. They're forced to take a look at solutions that would make their business bring in more revenue, cut costs, and be more efficient than they would have before. So I think they're more willing to talk, more willing to engage than they used to be. So if you can run some plays there that are working, and you can pick up the phone with people that are actually answering, then yeah, it's a great time to shift more of your time towards lead generation in these times. Build up the pipeline, and that even if your close rate has dropped because it's a tougher economy, if you're able to generate more leads, you can make up for it. Also, if a play is working in your organization, if a sales strategy is working in your organization, then you can think about pulling in help from other areas of the organization that might have more slack right now. Like a good example of this, someone that usually works on deployments or customer service might not be fully utilized right now. And you can pull them in to making more lead generation calls. As a company, you can kind of restructure your resources. All right, so that concludes what I wanted to talk about here, and I hope this has been helpful to everybody that's watching and listening. And I hope this leaves you feeling more confident that you can overcome challenges in this down economy. And recessions are tough on every salesperson, but staying aware of the challenges that are created by this changing landscape and utilizing these techniques, these strategies that we've talked about through this presentation, I hope that makes you better able to react, better able to adjust in these times. And yeah, thanks for listening. If anyone needs to contact me, or here's my contact information. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and feel free to ask questions right now too.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. That was a really enlightening and interesting presentation, and very helpful. I'll certainly be using some of those tips that you gave us. So good job. We're gonna open the floor to some quick questions. We're almost out of time. So can you raise your hands if you want to ask a question? And to answer the question from Winston, he was asking about the Disney situation, but I believe that he was probably, Winston, you were talking mostly about copyright, which is the extension of copyright, which is now at 70, and they want to extend it. We in Jamaica have extended it to 95 already. And so it's copyright extension that you probably are talking about. But because trademark, you can always renew your trademark. As I said in my presentation, that it's for a lifetime. And once, usually, I think in most jurisdictions, it's 10 years. And so after the 10 years, you can then renew. So any questions before we go? Raise your hands, please. Well, apparently we did a great job, Steve.
It's great to hear.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being a part of this webinar. We appreciate your company. We hope that you had a good experience and that you learned something of value. I'm certain that you did, especially from Steve in terms of those who are interested in sales. And I want to thank Miss Benny Watson, for being the host at the beginning, but she had to leave. And we're wishing our friend Everall all the best in his current situation. And you'll hear from us pretty soon. For those who didn't make it, will make the tape available, and we'll be sending out some resource material from myself and Steve to you in due course. So thank you for being a part of this really interesting webinar, and you'll see us soon. So take care and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.